From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome in to the third edition of Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. I'm Adam Bernard, and my defensive partner for today is Mr. Christopher Morais. Chris, how are we doing today?
I'm happy that the game finished under 6 goals yesterday. That is my happy place.
I would agree with that. That was one of the plays that we both had given out on Bettor Sports Betting on Thursday. Yeah, there was the game yesterday. Florida takes it in overtime. Surprise, surprise. They go to 7-0 in overtime in the playoffs. By the way, Mr. Anthony Rivera, his other job is preventing him from getting in the way of being here today. He will be back next week for maybe some Game 5 talk on Bettor Hockey Now. So we miss Tony Rivers, but we'll see him back here soon. Back to Game 3. Just a quick recap here. Like we said, 7th OT win of the postseason for Florida and a 3-2 victory. Florida back end was active. It was more active offensively. We saw that with Brandon Montour getting on the scoreboard. Sergei Bobrovsky bounced back. Like we talked about, when a hot streak like his magnitude comes to an end, it was a train wreck. We saw that in Game 2. Bounced back just fine in Game 3. The one thing that from Game 3 that it almost got away from Florida early. They gave Vegas 2 power play opportunities in the first period. Mark Stone capitalizes on a 4-on-3 chance. Florida was playing better, but then they kind of started to give the momentum back to Vegas, and I don't know, like that scared me a little bit. They lose Tkachuk for 17 minutes. They just they hung on and did what they did. They tied the game late and won it in overtime. I don't know if you can live throughout the Stanley Cup Finals doing that, but Florida certainly has made a habit of it. What were your takeaways from Game 3?
Exactly. I mean, Florida again shot themselves in the foot a little bit by taking penalties. I know the referees were a little bit whistle friendly here. They called penalties, but again, I mean, the Golden Knights were 2 for 6 on the power play. And if you keep giving them chances to score goals, they're going to score goals. They were, I would say, the better team 60-minute wise, but as we know, the better team in hockey doesn't always win. And then Matthew Tkachuk did exactly what he should be doing. He didn't take a penalty, so congrats to him. He also missed, like you said, a little bit of time, so maybe that helped him out a little. But he's in front of the net. He's where he needs to be. Scores a goal. It's just classic Matthew Tkachuk. And like Bobrovsky played well, sure. And good to see Carter Verhaeghe scoring goals. I mean, name a better duo than Carter Verhaeghe in overtime. That's just that's where he lights up and he gets better. He was I wouldn't say invisible, but he was very not noticeable in Game 1 and Game 2. It's good to him to find the back of the net here in Game 3, seal his team's win. And now Florida's got the massive task of coming into Game 4 and just winning so you can make this a best of 3.
Back to Tkachuk for a second. Even though he didn't score the OT winner, where was he on the front? Where was it? He was about 3 feet from Adin Hill crashing the net. I mean, the guy just makes an impact no matter what he does. And even if a guy is not parked in front of the net, screening the goalie, just the action of skating up on a goalie, you have to, no matter how disciplined you are, your eye is going to look off for a minute at that object moving at you, especially someone of Tkachuk's stature. This is not Martin St. Louis coming in at you. It's just he's everywhere he needs to be. And if it wasn't for the way Jonathan Marchessault was playing, Tkachuk might still be the odds-on favorite for the Conn Smythe, even though they're trailing in the series. Now, looking at the schedule here, they're going to play Game 4 on Saturday, 8:00 Eastern. Series odds entering Game 4, Vegas -280, Florida +220. You look on the right side there, Florida would like to repeat history and become the 6th team to rally from an 0-2 series deficit. You talked about on the last one, the Bruins were the last ones to do it when they played Vancouver in 2011. The 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins series, I was actually at the Game 3 where they were to rally it around. Our own Bettor boss, Matt Deutsch, is a huge Penguins fan. And me and him road tripped out for Game 3 when Sergei Gonchar scored the game-winning goal in overtime and then drove all the way back because I had to be back to produce in the morning. So that was quite the 24 hours, but great first Stanley Cup experience over at the Igloo. So again, we look at one other thing that could be concerning here as we start to move and look ahead to Game 4. Panthers are 0 for 10 on the power play in the series. This is a team that was number 10 in the NHL in the regular season, close to 28% success rate coming into the series. You know, Vegas's penalty kill does not have a great number, but you've mentioned playing Edmonton will deflate that number for you. Is there any concern that the power play has gone cold, or is it just, they're playing from behind and they're shooting themselves in the foot so much that if they could actually get going, maybe that would get going?
It is a little bit concerning. You want to capitalize on opportunities that you get, right? The 5-on-5 scoring is hard in the NHL. Whether, the league wants to change every single rule in the book to make it happen, they could have half the players play with a broken stick. It would still be hard to score goals. So you have to take advantage of power play opportunities because teams are going to get them. And I mean, the Panthers had 5 opportunities? Nothing. So that is concerning. The other thing that was a little bit concerning in that game 3, 24 turnovers for the Panthers, which is not something you want to do. Give your opponent 24 opportunities to take the puck and go the other way. I do think they can clean that up. They are the home team. I think maybe they pressed at times and they just, the puck got caught and they just, they turn it around the other way. But those two are definitely concerning. You can't turn the puck over, and you have to make your opponent pay when they take penalties. I'm not saying you have to score on every single power play that you get, but if you're going to get 6 chances, right, I expect you, or 5 chances here, I expect you to at least score 1 or 2. If they score 1 or 2 goals, they don't have to wait until 2 minutes left in the third period to lock this up. And then maybe you hit your minus 1.5 puck line, and you're able to put gas in your car at the end of the night, right? So
Exactly.
those are the 2 things that they have to clean up, right? Be disciplined with the puck when you have it. Take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you.
Besides Kachuk, I mean, who else is really trying to be that net front presence for Florida right now? Because it seems like a lot of it seems almost as if the defense can't get offense generated. If they can't activate and get going, that's not to say that's their only move, but that's been the only thing that's been kind of consistent for them in the playoffs.
Correct. And I mean, Carter Verhaeghe can be that guy who goes to the net, but I also want him to maybe stay a little bit around the perimeter because he has such a good shot. And outside, like you said, of Matthew Tkachuk, do I really want Alexander Barkov to go in front of the net? Not really. I want him to be able to facilitate the puck around. If you're looking at other guys like Anthony Duclair, who plays in the top 6, Nick Cousins, like these are not guys who are going to make a living in front of the net and make life difficult. Somebody has to go there, and it's got to be consistently, because again, Adin Hill saw a lot of those shots, but where did Florida score their goal? Right, their second one, traffic in front of the net, pucks loose, get to it first, find the back of the net. Who's there? Matthew Tkachuk. So I think Florida's success is going to be generating chances in front of the net and getting bodies there. So guys got to just find a way to dig down, right? All the cliches, get in front of the net, cause some havoc, make Adin Hill's life difficult. I don't think they made it difficult in game 3. I just think they found a way to score goals, which is fine. But even on that third goal, right? Verhaeghe takes a good shot. There's a lot of traffic in front of the net. It's a good shot that beat Adin Hill. I'll give Verhaeghe that, but you got to create something so that he can't see the puck because he's too good to not be, right? Like he's going to stop shots that he sees. So you have to get traffic in front of him.
He's an NHL goalie. If they see the puck, they're going to make the save, unless it takes some weird little flutter towards the net at the last second. If they see it, they're going to save it. So, traffic is key. Now let's take a look at those game 4 odds. This is from Caesars Sportsbook. Right now, up to $1,250 back on your first bet, plus 1,000 tier credits, plus the 1,000 reward credits using promo code FULLFA at fantasyalarm.com/Caesars. So they're providing the odds here for game 4 on the money line. Vegas plus 105, Florida minus 120. If you're looking at the puck line, minus 260 for Vegas, the puck and a half, Florida at plus 210. And then your total is 6 in a couple of spots, but it's still 5.5 in some, minus 125 or for the over, and then the under is at plus 105. So when you take a look at game 4 here, what is your early take on what do you expect to see? Were you thinking high scoring game, another low scoring game? What do we think about the flow here?
I'm feeling another low scoring game, right? I expect Florida to be able to correct their turnover, problem that they had in game 3. And like we mentioned earlier, like the Panthers are not scoring on the power play, and Vegas still had 6 opportunities, only put 2 in. One of them was a 4-on-3. So I kind of give them credit for it, but there's a lot of ice there. I mean, Mark Stone was standing in front of the net. He had nobody to touch him. All he did was put his blade on the puck and it changed a little bit of direction. So there's not, it's kind of interesting to see sportsbooks kind of flip as to where they started. We saw the total start at 5.5. We saw it go all the way up to 6.5. Now it's back to 5.5. So I think even Vegas is not sure where the goals are going to come or how often they're going to come. Getting it at under 5.5, I feel like that's fair. Also, very nice to see the puck line. I mean, yesterday it was what, plus 200. Now it's up to plus 210 on the Florida puck line. I am of the same belief that if they are leading at that point, then the empty net goal is key. I think maybe it's a little bit too rich for me just because I'm not sure if Florida's going to be leading late in the game. They look like more of a team that's going to need one of those last goals in the 5 minutes of the third period to get it. So I'd probably lay just the Florida money line and the under. I'm not seeing a high scoring affair here, at least as long as Bobrovsky is starting.
So game 3, I got a little greedy with the puck line, and then once Vegas went up 2-1, I kind of was like, all right, that's probably out the window at this point because I can't see Florida scoring 3 straight goals to cover that. So yeah, I when I'm looking at this game, I've been going back and forth on who I think is going to win. I'll start with the total. I'm going to lean over here as long as it stays at 5.5. If it goes to 6, I'm not interested in that anymore. But if Florida's going to win, if Florida's going to even the series, they have to start scoring more. They can't keep living and dying by this last second. All right, we're going to pull the goalie with 2 minutes to go because we're down. It's Vegas is too good of a team. You're not going to keep doing that to them. So there was just too, again, in game 3, Florida, they played better, but they didn't have, and listen, not playing with that. We're playing without your top guy for 17 minutes and still being able to hold on is fantastic. But when you said 24 turnovers, I know it's a 4-on-3, but how do you leave Mark Stone that uncovered in front of the net for that long? And there was nobody within 6 to 7 feet of him. I'm sorry. Somebody has to bail off and at least clear that. You have to. So I came in almost thinking Florida would even it and then Vegas would win the next 2, but I'm going to go Vegas money line here. I think Vegas is going to take a commanding 3-1 lead. They didn't play poorly. They just, Florida worked their magic at the end, and that's been, successful for them, but you can't rely on that. I think Vegas is going to send it back 3-1, but I do think we're going to get an over here at 5.5. I could see a 4-2 very easily, maybe even a 5-2, but I'm leaning over, but it's not, like you just said, Vegas, I don't know if they can figure out the over because we haven't got game 3 was the first time we actually got kind of a real hockey game. Game 1 got out of hand halfway through. Game 2 got out of hand about 10 minutes into the game. So it's been tough to get a read on that in that regard.
That is very fair. I'm glad we are on opposite sides of it. I do feel like Mark Stone had his own zip code at that point. Like there was nobody within range of him. And I mean, you got to watch. I understand you got to respect guys like Jack Eichel. You got to respect guys like Jonathan Marchessault, but you can't leave the guy in front of the net. Like if you're Bobrovsky, you're expected to stop those shots that are on those high circles kind of wing thing. Like just give the goalie and say, hey, this is your guy. Make sure you get him. But I don't know how they can leave Mark Stone there. I still think that the power play struggles on both sides just kind of nullify the how bad the penalty kills are. Even though they're so bad, nobody is scoring. So it's not. I'm not too worried of it. Like you said, if it goes to 6, then I want nothing to do with that. I'll go then I'll double down on the under for sure. But I think at 5.5, I can still live with it. And I think if a lot of people start maybe feeling the same way and thinking like you that it's going to be a high scoring game, then it probably pushes 6. And I feel like I'm in a better spot at that point. I wouldn't bet the 5.5 right now. I want to see what the overnight markets kind of feel on that. And if I wake up in the morning, it's still 5.5, then I'll say, okay, well, we're going to go down this ship. But I'm hoping that it will get to 6 just so I can get the under or at least a push. And I'll feel better.
Yeah, that's if it goes to 6 now, maybe I may even start leaning back towards the under, but at 5.5, I just think at some point, that you could say that game 2 is an offensive explosion. Yes, if you're just reading the box score, it's not, but that was a game that got out of hand and Vegas just, Florida packed it in. I don't think we've seen a game where we've really seen the offenses really explode yet. I feel like we're due for one of those at some point. Time's running out. So I think we might get that here in game 4. Now, looking at the Conn Smyth odds, and those are provided, wrong slide there. Now the Conn Smyth odds provided by BetMGM. Get $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win by using fantasyalarm.com/BetMGM. So head over there and sign up for that. Jonathan Marchessault right now is obviously the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to being the Conn Smythe favorite at -160. We talked about Tkachuk being the second guy at +375. Are we really looking at a three-man race for Conn Smythe at this point? If it's Jonathan Marchessault, Vegas wins, or if it's Tkachuk or Bobrovsky if Florida wins?
I think it's fair that Jonathan Marchessault has entered he's the leader. He has definitely demonstrated that he can continue this pace that he has been on. I do think that there's still a little bit of value on Jack Eichel. I think people just expect him to be good, and he has. So they're just like, okay, well, that's normal. But I could see him coming up as the second one. I don't know if I'd put any stock in Aiden Hill or Bobrovsky at this point. I just feel like they're not that they haven't done enough, but I don't know if they're going to do enough in this series to beat out guys like Marchessault, guys like Tkachuk, and guys like Eichel. I just don't think they have enough to do it on either end. I guess Matthew Tkachuk at 375 is fine, but I haven't. Again, same thing. I haven't seen enough from him. Unless the Panthers win, then I could see him getting it. I don't see Marchessault winning it. Let's say if Vegas loses the cup, I think they'll give it to somebody on the Florida side as they should. But for me right now, the money stands with Jack Eichel, just because I think he is a player that is just slightly underrated right now. People are forgetting him, and he has been good from the start. Like Marchessault was like he got hot in that Edmonton series and just never looked back. But I mean, for Jack Eichel, he's been good since puck drop of the playoffs.
I would agree with that. Yeah, Eichel's been the steady hand from round one to right now. Marchessault got a late start, and he's burning brighter than anybody right now. I would agree the value, and just to prove that point, 1 goal and 1 assist in game 3, 13 goals in the playoffs. He's the third player in the last 35 years to score in each of the first 3 Stanley Cup Finals games. In case you were running the other two, Steve Yzerman and Jake Gensel. He's got 5 straight games with a goal, and 9 of his 13 are on the road. So the guy, he's doing everything you want from a guy at this time of the year. But like you said, Eichel's, because it's almost like when A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, when he would have a bad season, it was like, well, it wasn't a bad season. It was a bad season by hit standards, but it wasn't a bad season. And I that's the thing. Eichel's bar is so high that he's playing very well, but it's kind of going under the radar a little bit. So if he can have a big game or two, I could see that, helping you out if you get it at +1,000. With Bobrovsky, I think for him to come back with Florida, he's going to have to pitch at least 1, maybe 2 shutouts to kind of really take over that race again. It's Tkachuk if it's Florida. Mark Stone is not, that's one that Anthony Rivera threw out. He had the goal in game 3. If he can get another couple of goals there, I could see him maybe being a dark horse candidate for the Conn Smythe there. So still time to get those bets in. Jonathan Marchessault, that, horse is out of the barn at this point, but it's still the odds on favorite. So we got a couple more minutes here before we wrap things up. Wanted to, we missed you on the last one. You're a big Canadians fan. Wanted to get your take on the Cole Caufield contract. This was a guy that, in fantasy, I was big on him last year. He got hurt in this season. I believe it was a shoulder injury that derailed, the rest of the year. But I mean, this is a guy that's exciting. This is a guy that I think Martin St. Louis is going to have a lot of fun trying, not to build the offense around, but to really create ways to, they're kind of similar players. So like, if anybody knows how to get the most out of him, it's going to be him.
No, that's 100%. I think the contract is really good. I'm happy that it's a long-term deal. I don't feel like it's too much money for a player who has that potential to score 40 plus goals. He's playing on a line with Nick Suzuki most nights, and Suzuki to me is one of the better passers in the NHL. He just seems to find Caufield's stick, and Caufield has, I know we call it an NHL release, but he has a shot that when it goes, it goes. He can bury the corner. He definitely helps. Like Montreal's power play was just atrocious, and without him, it was even worse. He made it, barely livable, so it wasn't dead last in the NHL. To me, I like the contract. I know some people are worried about his shoulder injury and everything, and they elected to do this shoulder procedure because Montreal was just nowhere near a playoff spot. So they figured we'll do it now, get it over with. You have the whole summer the whole summer to kind of work out, train, do what you need to do, take the rest of the year off, rehab, and then come back for training camp and be ready. So I'm not looking at it as something that is problematic. I see it as something as, okay, well, they chose to do it now. Doctors didn't think it would be a problem. He would have done it at some point. They chose to do it during the season when there was absolutely nothing to play for and Montreal was looking to just, not tank, because apparently, Gary Bettman doesn't believe in tanking, but make their team significantly worse enough that they would have a better chance of getting a first overall pick. So I like the deal. I don't think it's going to age poorly, right? It's 22 years old. I'm not worried about his size. I'm not worried about all those cliche things that people worry about. To me, he is a goal scorer, and whether, he has the potential, now it's up to him to do it. He had 26 goals this season. He still led the team in goals and he played half a year. So, like you said, Marty St. Louis can get the most out of him, give him those quality minutes, get him to play with guys who can support him. He is on a team that is there to, they need him to score goals. Like, look around that Montreal offense, and there isn't anybody who can shoot the puck as good as him. And it's, not within a country mile. So I like it. I'm happy. Like I said, it wasn't a bridge. You give him kind of like a 2-year, I don't know, 5.5 something. All of a sudden, let's say he scores 40, scores 50 if possible. And then all of a sudden your next deal, you're bargaining for the $9-10 million contract. So I think this buys up those years. I'm glad that he was able to get it done. And there's just one less thing that Montreal has to worry about. Now all he has to do is stay healthy.
I don't worry about the size with him because the game is also I understand we talked earlier about, like, you got to get big bodies in front of the net. You got to take the body and all that stuff. But it's become such a scoring game now that speed and it's not the mid to late 90s and early 2000s where a guy like Eric Lindros is just going to dominate because he's bigger than everybody else out there and because you're still allowed to clutch and grab and all that stuff. To bring it back to the Stanley Cup Finals, Jonathan Marchessault is 5'9".
Just about to say he's 5'9" and he seems to be perfectly fine. So
it doesn't seem to be affecting him all that much. So I think they'll be okay. I think, hockey's probably the one sport, of the four majors, and maybe soccer too, where height doesn't really make that much of a difference at this point. I mean, yeah, if you're, you want a bottom pairing defenseman that's going to, stay at home and take care of other, be the physical presence, it's a different story, but that's not what you want in a forward. So, all right. Well, that is the third edition of Bettor Hockey Now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to be back with you next week after Game 4. For some of us, we hope it's an even series. That way we can maximize our hockey. I think if Vegas goes back, parting thought here, goes back with 3-1 series lead, is it over, or could you think Florida can maybe get it back?
It's over. I don't see Vegas giving up 2 wins on home ice. I mean, we did say that about the Bruins, and here we are. But I just think Vegas at this point is a very complete hockey team, and I can see them just suffocating the middle of the ice and giving Florida absolutely nothing to work with. And if Florida's not going to figure out their power play, then they don't have a chance. They had to go back to Vegas tied 2-2, so it's a best of 3. You still have to win on the road, but it's a lot easier to win 1 on the road than having to win 2.
If they go back 3-1, I could see a scenario where, just because the Florida's the never say die kids, that maybe they push it back and then it's over in 6. But if I'm Bruce Cassidy going into Game 5 with a 3-1 series lead, I'm showing videos of Alexander Ovechkin's partying in Vegas, and for like the week after that in Washington. Like, this could be you guys. See what they did in Vegas when they won? You want that tonight? Make it happen tonight. So I can see that being a motivating factor too, because, out of all the cities you could celebrate a Stanley Cup victory in, you can make an argument for my hometown of New York, but I think Vegas is probably the number 1 spot out of any of the league. So
I would agree.
We'll see what happens in Game 4 on Saturday, but that does it for Bettor Hockey Now, Episode 3. For Christopher Morais, I'm Adam Bernard. Back with you next week on Bettor Hockey Now.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.